insider told CNN that those employees were involved in the investigation of President Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate. The ousters are part of a wider internal investigation that Patel ordered into the probe that led to criminal charges against Trump and two of his employees. The firings are just the latest in a series of moves by Patel to push out agents and other employees who worked on the Trump documents case, as well as cases related to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Long hours, marathon hours, we did make good progress. Seriously, we delved into elements of an agreement, both nuclear and regarding sanctions removal. Regarding a number of issues, we have come to close understanding. In some areas, we have some differences. Maybe more than in the past, we have seen more seriousness on both sides to reach a negotiated settlement. So we are supposed to have our technical teams. As of Monday, they will start working their technical aspect within the IAEA, with the help of the experts at the IAEA.
Movie nerds, now is your chance to own a piece of history. More than 1,500 pieces of movie memorabilia go up for auction next month in Los Angeles. You can actually own a light-up C-3PO head from Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, or the harpoon gun used in Jaws as well, but of course, they will not be cheap. The droid head alone is expected to sell for up to $700,000.
The U.S. and Iran wrapped up nuclear talks in Geneva with signs of progress, but no major breakthrough. The Iranian foreign minister says the two sides identified the main elements of a potential agreement. Sanctions relief was a key topic of discussion on Thursday. The talks are set to continue at a technical level next week in Vienna. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he spoke with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner following peace talks in Geneva. He says negotiations to end the war in Ukraine are expected to resume early next month. Officials from Russia, the U.S., and Ukraine will most likely return to Abu Dhabi for the next round of talks. Tensions are flaring again between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Rival Taliban factions have been trading cross-border strikes for the past few days. A fragile ceasefire has been in place between the neighboring countries since October until attacks resumed last weekend.
Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban government have engaged in a fresh round of deadly cross-border fighting. Afghanistan announcing it launched raids Thursday night along the 1,600-mile or 2,600-kilometer-long border between the two countries. Pakistan responding with what appear to be airstrikes deep in Afghan territory, including the capital, Kabul. Both sides claim to have killed scores of soldiers amid unconfirmed reports of wounded civilians. Fighting between the neighbors is striking, since in past decades, critics often accused the Pakistani government of supporting the Taliban as it was battling the now defeated U.S.-backed government in Afghanistan. And that's something I asked Pakistan's defense minister about in an interview last November.
But are some of the Taliban officials that have been fighting with Pakistan some of the same people who used to live and take shelter here?
Yes, that's correct, you know. They still have properties over here.
Is that the definition of blowback?
Yeah, I think so.
Islamabad now accuses the Afghan Taliban of supporting Pakistani Taliban fighters waging an increasingly deadly insurgency inside Pakistan. In a social media post, Pakistan's defense minister announced now it's open war between us and you.
The U.S. women's hockey team is still celebrating after capturing the gold in an overtime thriller against Canada. Caroline Harvey is the MVP, likely going to be the first draft pick in the upcoming Professional Women's Hockey League draft. But first, she's back in school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and that is where she joins us from right now. Caroline, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, too. This is an honor.
So what has been the most surreal celebration so far?
There's been many great celebrations. If I was to pick one, I would just say the day following, like the same day of winning the Olympic gold with my teammates and family and friends. We had, of course, celebrate on the ice, and we heard that anthem, united as one, arms around each other. That was a very special moment. But following that, we went to the USA house, and we celebrated and all hung out collectively as a team and then with our family and friends. So that was a pretty special time, and I really enjoyed that night with everyone.
Describe that moment, which we're looking at right now, of when you're all on the ice, the national anthem is playing, you see the flag. What goes through your mind in that moment?
Yeah, there's pretty speechless, but obviously it's just a special feeling. You feel so united and together as one. I mean, we've been working so hard this whole year towards this common goal of capturing gold. And of course, like there's been many camps and hard work and efforts gone into it. And the team behind our team that's been there for us and getting us to that moment. And just, it was such a sweet moment. Cherry on top, of course, bringing the gold home. But yeah, in that moment, it was just, you're with your sisters and you feel so united, and you guys we're screaming the national anthem, and it means everything.
So you got started in this very young, right? You're like 3 or 4 years old and you were skating, right? What is your message to all the little girls and little boys that are watching you all right now?
Yeah, it's been a great journey so far, and it started because of my brother and wanting to follow in his footsteps. But for young kids out there who wanna get started on their own journey and partake in hockey, I would just say follow your dreams and dream big. And if you're willing to work hard and put in the consistent work every day, you can really achieve whatever you put your mind to.
Stories in Washington where a source tells CNN that U.S. President Donald Trump has been briefed on potential military operations in Iran over its nuclear program. The commander of U.S. Central Command briefed the president on Thursday. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs also in attendance. That briefing comes as U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance tried to address concerns of Americans wary of another potential war in the Middle East. Vance telling the Washington Post, quote, "The idea that we're going to be in a Middle Eastern war for years with no end in sight, there is no chance that'll happen." The U.S. and Iran wrapped up talks in Geneva on a potential nuclear deal with signs of progress but no major breakthroughs. Talks are set to continue in Vienna next week. CNN's Fred Pleitgen has details.
One of the things that we have to know about the talks that took place here is that they were a lot longer than the talks that we've seen, the first two rounds that we saw between the United States side and the Iranians over the past couple of weeks, those lasting, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 hours. These had 2 sessions that were 3 hours each, so a lot longer, and it seems as though the two sides delved a lot more into details and a possible text than they did before. But the Iranians already came to this meeting here with a proposal that they had formulated, something the United States asked them to do. The U.S. in the last meeting had said that there were certain red lines for them, and they wanted the Iranians to work out at least what a document could look like, and that seemed to be the basis of what was going on. There are, of course, still a lot of things where the two sides still appear to be maybe not that far apart, but pretty far apart. The main thing, of course, is nuclear enrichment by the Iranians. There was an Iranian source with knowledge of the talks that told me the Iranians are continuing to insist on nuclear enrichment, saying that is a right that they have and not something that they're going to give up. The U.S., of course, wants zero enrichment, but it's unclear whether or not the Trump administration would be willing to settle for something along the lines of very little uranium enrichment possible for medical purposes and maybe other smaller purposes as far as research is concerned. And for the Iranian side, and this is something that an Iranian source told me as well, for them sanctions relief is really something that's extremely important to sort out. They want major sanctions relief if they're going to make big concessions on their nuclear program, and they say that involves not only U.S. sanctions, but also United Nations Security Council sanctions as well. For the Iranian economy, obviously that would be very important. It's being strangled. And at the same time, of course, as you mentioned, that military buildup by the United States still going on in the Middle East, the Iranians saying that if they get attacked, they're going to hit back in a major way. So right now the tension is still there, and I think everybody who took part in these talks today and everybody who's observing these talks certainly waiting to see what President Trump's next words are going to be, whether or not he also assesses that these talks went in a positive manner.
story this hour is Republicans pressing the Clintons for answers about late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Former President Bill Clinton will testify before a House committee in the day ahead. Hillary Clinton was deposed on Thursday behind closed doors. Both she and her husband demanded a public hearing, but the Republican-led House Oversight Committee refused to do so publicly. The former Secretary of State denied any prior knowledge of Epstein and his crimes and appeared exasperated with the whole proceeding.
I thought it was very repetitive. I thought that they asked literally the same questions over and over again, which didn't seem to me to be very productive. I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times.
Other Democrats accuse the committee of carrying out a clown show. And they say more Republicans and conservatives named in the files deserve their own turn on the hot seat.
We also want to hear from other folks, whether it's Howard Lutnick, who of course we know had lied about his relationship with Epstein in many interviews, or whether it's from Donald Trump. Donald Trump has appeared in the Epstein files almost more than any other single person. And if they're going to set a new precedent of now talking to former presidents or current presidents, it is time for Donald Trump to come before our committee under oath and testify.
Robert Garcia, the top Democrat on that committee. In a moment, we'll have live legal analysis here on our set, but we start things off for the hour with CNN's MJ Lee in Chappaqua, New York.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton came out of an almost 7-hour deposition behind closed doors with members of the House Oversight Committee here in Chappaqua, New York. And she essentially said what she has been saying for a while, that she told these lawmakers that she didn't know Jeffrey Epstein, didn't have any information to share about his criminal activities. But of course, the story tomorrow, as it concerns her husband, former President Bill Clinton, is going to be very different because he is somebody that did have a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and his name and his photos are all throughout the Epstein files that have been released by the Justice Department. And one question that I asked the former Secretary of State when she came out to speak to reporters afterwards was whether she is 100% confident that Bill Clinton didn't know anything about Epstein's crimes. This is what she said.
I am, and I think the chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein's ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light, and that he was charged and sadly given a sweetheart deal, which, as I said in my statement, had that not happened, perhaps his predatory behavior could have been stopped earlier. But I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Hillary Clinton also said that she found the questions during Thursday's deposition quite repetitive. She also said there were some unusual moments, confirming CNN's earlier reporting that at times Republican lawmakers were asking her about UFOs and also the Pizzagate conspiracy theory. We also reported that one Republican lawmaker, Nancy Mace, had asked Hillary Clinton how she felt about young women massaging Bill Clinton, the former president, and I'm told that she responded by saying she's not here to speculate about things she's not aware of, and that she's also not here to talk about her feelings. MJ Lee, CNN, Chappaqua, New York.
I got to say, my last day on Interstellar, I was very moved. I was sad to be leaving, and I went in my trailer and I went in the bathroom and there was a huge turd in my toilet. And I was like, I felt so disrespected because I thought, oh man, I know I'm not the star in this movie, but like, who's coming? So I went around to all the huge grips. We were in the suburbs of Canada, these big guys. I said, hey, when you guys, let it loose in my trailer? And they said no. And I went up to Nolan on set too. I said, down my trailer. And he kind of pointed to Matthew, and I liked that Matthew had this devilish grin on his face, like, right now, man. And I said, why'd you do that, man? He said, in Texas, it's coming of age, baby. He's like,
souvenir.
A little souvenir. That's a true story, though.
though, the story is immigration. A Columbia University student detained by federal immigration agents has now been released from custody. Her name is Eli Agayeva. She posted that she was freed after the university said that agents used false pretenses to enter a campus building in New York City. She's from Azerbaijan. She was arrested Thursday after DHS claimed her student visa was terminated in 2016. The university's acting president said agents entered her apartment by saying they were searching for a missing child. DHS denies agents misrepresented themselves. Joining live from New York with more on this is CNN's Omar Jimenez. Omar, what happened here?
Yeah, so acting Columbia University President Claire Shipman says that 5 agents from the Department of Homeland Security entered this off-campus Columbia residential building without a warrant, as she says. And what's more is she also claimed that the agents got entry to the building and apartment because these agents were posing as police looking for a missing child. And she even said that security cameras captured these agents in the hallway showing pictures of the alleged missing child. Now, she says once they were in the apartment and that it was clear they misrepresented, as she says, a warrant wasn't produced for public safety officers, and then Elia Gayeva was taken into custody. DHS did confirm her arrest and said her student visa had been terminated in 2016 under the Obama administration for failing to attend classes. Now, what's interesting is, in the aftermath of this taking place, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani was meeting with President Trump in D.C. to discuss housing and said that he urged President Trump that she be released, and that in a follow-up call, President Trump said she would be released imminently, and we know that ended up being the case. When DHS was asked about the misrepresentation claim, they denied that, saying that Homeland Security investigators identified themselves properly, that they didn't identify themselves as police, but university leadership feels differently, and it's rattled a lot of the Columbia University community, Alex.
Death toll is rising in the latest cross-border strikes between Afghanistan and Pakistan. A fragile ceasefire has been in place between the neighboring countries since October until last weekend. This is a complicated fight with Taliban forces in both countries. Video from Afghan forces released Thursday shows military vehicles on the move with the sound of heavy gunfire in the background. Let's bring in CNN's senior international correspondent Ivan Watson following this story live from Hong Kong for us. Ivan, what do we know about what started this conflict?
Well, it is a startling reversal, considering that critics for many years accused the Pakistani government of supporting the Taliban in Afghanistan, and now they're basically at war with each other. What we saw Thursday night was that the Taliban government in Afghanistan announced that it was carrying out a series of cross-border raids along the Durand Line. That's the name for the 1,600-mile, 2,600-kilometer-long border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And then the Pakistani government announced that it was effectively retaliating. The government in Afghanistan says that there were airstrikes in Kandahar, in Paktia province, and in the capital, Kabul. The Pakistani government says that it was targeting Afghan military targets, things like a battalion headquarters, an ammunition depot, a sector headquarters, and that both sides are claiming to have killed scores of troops on each side, and there have been unconfirmed reports of civilians being injured as well. You mentioned that this is complicated. It is complicated because there's an Afghan Taliban that runs Afghanistan. There's also a Pakistani Taliban, the TTP, that has been waging an increasingly deadly insurgency inside Pakistan. The Pakistani government accuses the Afghan Taliban of supporting the Pakistani Taliban, and that is part of why it is carrying out these attacks across the border. I mentioned the fact that in decades past, when the U.S.-backed, now defeated government in Afghanistan was at war with the Afghan Taliban, the critics accused Pakistan of supporting this Afghan Taliban. And I asked the Pakistani defense minister about this back in November, how the sides seemed to have switched, and this is what he had to say.
But are some of the Taliban officials that have been fighting with Pakistan some of the same people who used to live and take shelter here?
Yes, that's correct, They still have properties over here.
Is that the definition of blowback?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So the blowback continues to unravel, and the ceasefire, the shaky ceasefire from October, does seem to be falling apart right now, Alex.
Kim Jong-un is promising to further grow his country's nuclear arsenal. These are images of last night's military parade in Pyongyang, showing off thousands of soldiers. Alongside Kim Jong-un was his teenage daughter in a matching leather jacket. Now, observers are speculating she may be next in line of succession. Will Ripley takes a look.
North Korea's first daughter is the spitting image of her dad, arriving at this week's military parade in matching black leather coats. The teenager even walks ahead of her own mother, a sign of her rising rank and status. In North Korean state media, she's called Kim Jong-un's beloved, dear daughter. And yet, not once has state media ever mentioned her name. It's believed to be Kim Ju-ae, a detail revealed by none other than Dennis Rodman, who says he held her as a baby when the U.S. basketball star made a controversial visit to Pyongyang in 2013.
If we could just open the door just a little bit for people to come here.
North Korea has also never revealed Kim Ju-ae's age, thought to be around 13 or 14. This is the paradox of Pyongyang's princess, growing up in front of a world that knows almost nothing about her, but now cannot stop talking about her, speculating about whether she's her father's chosen successor. Rumors began swirling after her 2022 debut, fittingly at a massive missile launch, a not-so-subtle signal to the world that the Kim dynasty will carry on with a nuclear-armed insurance policy. We do know she joined her father on his armored green train for an official state visit to Beijing last year, meeting world leaders like China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin. One reason why South Korea's spy agency, the National Intelligence Service, told lawmakers behind closed doors Kim has now entered the stage of nominating his daughter as successor, and that she's no longer just showing up at big events, but also weighing in on policy decisions.
She is giving her direct opinions on some policies during her on-site inspections.
Kim also just promoted his younger sister, Kim Yo-jong, a close aide and trusted confidant, long rumored to be his successor, before Kim Ju-ae's big reveal. Kim Jong-un is also believed to have other children. There's long been speculation about a possible older son, and if that son exists, the equation could change quickly if he ever steps forward. Kim Jong-un himself had only a brief time in the public eye before his father died in 2011. He had been studying at a private boarding school in Switzerland before much of the world even knew he existed. His father, North Korea's second leader, Kim Jong-il, had decades in the spotlight before taking over from his father, the country's founding leader, Kim Il-sung. Seoul's latest intelligence assessment about Kim Ju-ae's future may be their strongest to date. But in North Korea, nothing is official until it's official, raising the question, has North Korea's next leader already been decided, or are there others waiting in the wings?
Will Ripley joins me now from Taipei. North Korea held an important political gathering earlier this week. Did that give any clues about the successor?
Yeah, it was their 9th party congress, which they hold once every 5 or so years. And we were hoping for some sort of clue, Anderson, but there were no surprises, no clear succession plans. Kim Jong-un, unsurprisingly, was unanimously reelected as general secretary of the Workers' Party. He promoted his sister to full party director after years as a deputy. But Kim's daughter, she just appeared once again at this parade wearing that matching black leather jacket, a parade that featured 14,000 troops, but interestingly, no weapons. So the world keeps guessing.
Almost the entire top Chinese military leadership gone, and the purge goes deeper than it appears, according to a new report from a Washington think tank. Let's start with China's Central Military Commission, the powerful group of generals that controls the People's Liberation Army, led by Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Here they are in 2023. Since then, all but one of the generals has been expelled or placed under investigation, including Xi's highest-ranking general and longtime ally Jiang Youxia, who was targeted last month. That's just the very top. Since 2022, Around 100 military officers have potentially been purged, the Center for Strategic and International Studies found. For example, CSIS said Joint Staff Deputy Chief Jing Jianfeng hasn't been seen at function since last year. A purge of this scale affects roughly half of the 176 leadership positions in the PLA, when taking into account positions that have been purged more than once. So what does this mean for China's military? The report authors say that replacing top-ranking generals will be more challenging because the ranks of up-and-coming officers have been diminished, and the empty seats could hinder China's ability to fight and impact any potential plans Beijing may have around using force to take control of Taiwan. Xi has spent years trying to eliminate corruption in the military as he consolidates his own power. And in the black box of China's military, it's difficult to know exactly what's behind the moves. Some argue that cleaning house eventually could make China's military even stronger.
What's going on?
Good to see you again.
Antonio, you've been crushing it, doing all these coverage for the Olympics, but I hear we're about to crush some food.
Yes, and probably this is the shoot I'm most excited about. I'm taking you to my favorite restaurant in Milan. This is Ratana, and you're going to try the original Milanese risotto. Let's do it.
Let's go.
We have a little cooking situation set up. It's a surprise. We
Oh!
Ciao. Chef Cesare.
Ciao. Chef, a pleasure.
To meet you. Welcome.
I've heard great things about you.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Woo! I can smell all these spices already.
Now, today I show you our risotto Milanese. It's a typical Milanese dish. It's rice with saffron. So, we put just rice without nothing in the pan.
No water.
No water now. You gotta toast the rice.
Gonna toast it a little bit.
Yeah. It's toasted per sigillare, come si dice?
To seal.
To seal.
To seal the rice grain.
Yeah.
Right, so that they don't absorb too much liquid when they're cooked, so they don't become mushy, right?
Yeah.
What kind of broth is that?
Veal.
Veal broth.
Antonio was telling me people come from all over to have your risotto Milanese.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I use a good rice, good broth, good butter. It's coming from the mountain. It's organic butter. This is it's not Grana or Parmigiano. It's a Lodigiano tipico. It's made near Milano. It's the original cheese. We don't put before the saffron, because if you toast the saffron, it's bitter flavor.
So effectively, if you're eating a risotto and it has a saffron strand, if that hits your tongue, it's a very explosive flavor.
Bam!
That's why they use the powder, which is a softer flavor, so it's not too intense.
So you get a little the nice subtle, and then also the bam! Legend has it that it was a stained glass maker working on the Milan Cathedral who was using saffron to color the glass, and they made fun of him, so he put it in some rice, and it became a hit.
Yeah. Saffron is it's here in Milan from 500 years.
No, I love this restaurant because it's also because of the surrounding area. It's the food is beautiful, top quality, delicious, but you're also in a very relaxed environment, and the food is very much based on sustainability.
Have you had any Olympians eat here at your restaurant during the games?
La squadra americana femminile.
The female hockey team.
The women. You're the reason they won a gold medal.
Yeah.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce. Now everybody's.
Oh, look at that color.
When we finish, we put butter and cheese. So.
Risotto alla Milanese. I hope you like it after all of this.
Oh my goodness, let's go. Oh, it looks like an Olympic gold medal.